Dear friends, thanks for joining us for the next edition of Talking Europe, a series of discussions and events we have been holding in partnership with the European Commission. This time we are hosting Commission Vice President Jourová, who is responsible for values and transparency. She spoke to us during Democracy Alive, our flagship event, about the challenges of democracy in Europe and what the European Commission is doing to safeguard our values. Do follow the discussion, engage through commenting on the social media platforms that you are watching this, and of course follow us at europeanmovement.eu for more events, more debates, more discussions, and more ideas about the future of Europe. Thank you very much for joining.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for inviting me here today. I often attend such events, and very often afterwards I think, well, I harvested more than the audience maybe, because always it's important for me to have a dialogue and to hear also some inspirative, sometimes also critical comments. So maybe we might do it today as well. I will say a few words about what the Commission is doing in the time of maybe some would say declining democratic principles and declining trust of people in democratic institutions, because this is the topic of today's debate here, I guess. I want to say that for me, democracy is first of all trust. Without trust, we cannot promote the liberal democracy and our solutions, which we all believe are the right ones. This is trust in one another, trust in the institutions, trust that the state authorities are not there to oppress us, but to serve us. And I know what I speaking about oppression, because I lived half of my life in authoritarian regime. I lived in Czechoslovakia, in the country, by the way, which was occupied 21 years by Russian troops. So also now, when we try to do everything to support Ukraine, but also to defend ourselves and our values, because they are also under permanent and strong attack through the Russian propaganda, I am glad that we have some tools in hands, and that we can and we should do more in these times. We have, when I will say we, I mean liberal democrats, to be clear. We sometimes have a tendency to keep lamenting about the nationalists and populists and far right and far left, and this is all okay. We have to criticize them and criticize their solutions, which I am listening to them very often in the European Parliament. As you know, I'm sitting in the middle, belonging to Renew Club, which is straight in the middle, and far left, far right. When I'm listening to them and to their solutions they offer, if we let them do it, we would end up in some new kind of totalitarian arrangement. So this is why I think that we have to get stronger, and especially now, 1 year before the elections, we have to really think thoroughly through all the things we can do to stop losing the people and gain them back. I once said that we have to seduce the people with workable solutions, and I think that this is our task. Maybe we could be less lamenting and criticizing, and maybe we should more often look into our own mirror and to look at ourselves, and also to be able to make a realistic assessment of the reality we live in. The question why we are losing people, why we are losing trust, has several reasons. And what I am going to tell you, it's just my empiric knowledge, or something I learned and something I analyzed for myself. What are the factors? And I think that if we analyze the factors, we might be better equipped to deliver solutions and recipes. There are several objective factors we face. This is I will start with the COVID pandemic. I have to continue with the war in Russia. Then the climate change, which is objective threat, and we have to deliver on our promise that the next generations will be able to live on this planet. And we cannot do it alone as the EU. We need partners globally. There is, what else? The objective reasons. Yes, energy crisis to a large extent, and also inflation and economic problems, which are in many member states. But then, for me, more important is asking the question what to do. Are the factors which we have fully in hands? What I hear from the citizens in almost all the member states, there is a high level of uncertainty because of the factors I mentioned, but also high level of the feeling of injustice and inequality. We have this in our hands. And I think that too many people felt being left behind. And so this is something we should focus on. Then why we are losing people, why we are losing trust. There are the factors like misbehavior of politicians, the Qatar Gate. Of course, one might say, yeah, this was a case which concerns a socialist club in the parliament. But make no mistake, the people do not differentiate. They just say there is something rotten in European politics. And of course, they can enlarge it for politics as such. Misbehavior, breaching of ethical standards, corruption, abuse of power, and I also have to mention arrogant and unclear communication. Are we still able to explain to people what we are planning in normal, plain language? I can tell you sometimes I receive the materials for the speeches. Wojtek, it's not this case, yeah, the speech is very clear, very well written. I would wish you to read it. But sometimes I receive the papers which I do not understand myself. Bloody hell, after being 9 years in this position, being the lawyer, having some common knowledge of English. Well, I think that this arrogance and this miserable communication is part of our problem. And if somebody says that digital media, online, social networks, that they are being abused against liberal values, of course it's true. So my question is, why don't we use it in the same way? Yeah, I will use a horrible thing now to compare, no, to explain to you how I see it. My father always told me, when you drink too much and you have a hangover, heal yourself with the same remedy. Yeah? So, in Czech reality, it means if it was beer, drink beer in the morning. My father was a very wise man. It works. But my point is, this is the reality. We use social media, the digital platforms for communication as the human beings. So we simply have to learn how to work with it, including pre-bunking of disinformation. And you know, disinformation is every day on my table because this is part of my portfolio. But I mean, we should be able to predict which kind of narratives will be abused against us. So we have to communicate and we have to explain early on what we plan, because then informed people who understand what we are saying to them, will be less or more immune to the disinformation and the propaganda of the far right, far left, and those enemies abroad, especially Russia. I was in Germany recently, and Germany was chosen as one of the countries by Russia for very well-targeted disinformation campaign. And you will not be surprised, I am not surprised, The domestic proxies is AFD party. And they can find these parties in all the member states. Far left, far right, they do not hesitate now to connect with our enemies, which are now attacking Ukraine especially. We also have China, we have Iran, but mainly it is about Russia. And why I speak about pre-banking and not, I don't know, taking some measures to ban some content. And again, I'm now speaking on behalf of my job and protection of freedom of speech. This is not the way for Europe. Banning content, which is legal, it would be the way to hell. And I think that the freedom of speech is one of our big values and big strengths. So my message to the Liberal Democrats is always, let's use the freedom of speech and let's be clear. I often hear from far left, far right in the Parliament really the things, the opinions which I hate to hear. I dislike it. I'm sharply against that. But my job as the Commissioner for Values is to protect their rights to say these things. It's old good Voltaire, no? Who is French here, but it's very international. So I quoted my father and Voltaire. I think that you will have some experience today. My message is let's analyze the reasons and let's try first to do ourselves what's best to get the people back. The campaign to European elections will be very harsh and very maybe unprecedented because of all those uncertainties and very how to say divisive topics which are in the air in Europe. I have to say I have bigger concerns than last time before 2019 because of the atmosphere in the society, which is simply prone to let the extremists to get more power. We still have time to work against that. The Commission has good tools in hands to protect and defend what I call Holy Trinity, which is the rule of law, democracy and fundamental rights. On rule of law, and I know you said to me that you had a discussion about that, we see that the rule of law haven in the EU is over. We see in Poland since 2015 that the democratically elected government can adopt the laws which demolish the independence of judges and of judiciary. And we are addressing these issues by means of infringements, Article 7. The same for Hungary. There are, of course, many issues in Hungary. I see structural damage being already done by Orbán's regime. And whenever I speak publicly about the problems in these two countries, and you can imagine how difficult it is for me. Sometimes I come from that region. But I am always very careful to speak about the damage caused by the political representation, by the government, by the majority in the parliaments. I never speak about Poland or Hungary as problematic entities, because there are voters who cast their independent vote. And we have to be very careful not to discourage those who wish in those countries and all others who wish to live in democratic system. We should not discourage them by us mentoring them or bringing advices which sometimes cannot work in the countries. We don't know everything best from Brussels. It's another lesson I learned. So, but rule of law is the basic principle in the EU, primacy of EU law and respect for EU law. National judges are also European judges. So we do, I think, the very right thing, pushing the political representation to restore the independence of judiciary. And independence of judiciary is being under pressure in several other member states. And here comes our rule of law report, which is every year exercise. Every July, we publish how we analyze the situation in all the member states. And it's a fantastic preventive tool, because it enabled me to come to the country and have structured dialogue on the concrete things which we see as negative trends. And in many cases also already it helped to stop the negative trend by means of early discussion. We are applying financial sanctions, or freezing the money, if you like it better. We apply the conditionality regulation in case of Hungary. We also conditioned recovery funding to Poland and Hungary. If you have questions on that, I can answer. Protecting democracy, we try to do it through the measures foreseen in the European Democracy Action Plan. So here comes the protection of media, the Media Freedom Act, which I would like to see being adopted in good shape. When next year spring, I still hope we will get the agreement. The Media Freedom Act says the following: we want from media a lot. They are not just ordinary actors on our single market. We need them to be the strong pillar of democracy. So why don't we protect the media better? So this is the answer. The proposal of the Media Freedom Act, which is protecting media, which wants to create some kind of sanitary cordon or some kind of safety net around the media against the political pressure, against extreme economic pressures, against surveillance and so on. Also, we proposed the measures to protect journalists better so that they can do the job. The saga on disinformation, I already touched upon that a little bit. We created the Code of Conduct against disinformation, which is a parallel thing or connected thing with the Digital Services Act. Digital Services Act says you platforms grabbed too much power and no responsibility. So no, this is the responsibility for you. First of all, you must not continue the practice that you are distributors of crime. Hate speech, child pornography, extremism, terrorism, no way. Put your house in order, we say to Google and others, otherwise there will be sanction. The code of practice is covering disinformation, which is not, in most of the cases, not illegal content, but it can be very harmful content. I sometimes hear that there is no definition of disinformation. It's not true. We have the definition in the code. I sometimes simplify that by saying that disinformation is verifiable lie. Wojtek is not listening. It's not that simple. Because a verifiable lie is some maybe innocent rumor which can fly through social media easily, but no, this is not what makes us nervous. What makes us really nervous is a disinformation campaign produced in a coordinated manner with the intention to do harm to the society. And this verifiable lie, it indicates that we speak about facts, not opinions. That's our concept. This concept is in the code of practice against disinformation. The beauty of the code is that we do not foresee anyone to have the stamper to say, this is the truth, this is the lie. This is what I remember from communist Czechoslovakia. Yeah? There was Minister Kopecký. He was the Minister of Information. He had this stamper. And many people went to jail because of his verdict. Yeah? So I don't want to be Commissioner Kopecký. I might be good qualified for recognizing the truth and lie, but nobody should have this power. Nobody must have this power. That's why the code is inviting many different actors to work on fact-checking, on analyzing, on delivering the evidence. Because what we want, what is our main interest? To have a well-informed citizen. Everything we do has to have in mind the individual people, the citizens of the EU. And this citizen should be well-informed to make well-informed choices for his private life, but also for the society as the voter. So the part of the code and everything we do against disinformation is also a kind of immunization of the society. There is a lack of education, lack of awareness raised and attention given to the fact that that massive manipulation is underway. And again, coming back to the extremists, of course they are masters in it. They are harvesting fear and uncertainty. And so what's the choice for us? Well, to decrease the fear and uncertainty, and to give the people the facts, and to trust. It's an interplay. I spoke about the trust from the citizens to us, to institutions. Also, I think it's time to trust the people that they will make informed choices, that they will appreciate to read the facts. The code shows that those pieces of disinformation which are fact-checked and labeled early on, they have the potential to stop the people from sending the disinformation further and think. It has impact. And so we want to continue this. Informed and active citizen able to deploy critical thinking, demanding answers from the political sphere. This is what we want to have in Europe. This is what we want to see. Because those informed, engaged citizens will not easily create the crowd, which is so easy to manipulate, which is so easy to mislead. This is the crowd which the extremists need. Let's not give it to them. It's uneasy, but it's not theoretical concept. I mean that we always have to have in mind individual citizen and serve to him. What else do I have here? Do you want something about the Defense of Democracy package? Is here somebody paid by Beijing? No, not me. Now I don't want to ridicule it, because this is something which is attracting attention of many. It also created a lot of increased adrenaline, especially in the field of the civil society organizations. As you know, we plan this Defense of Democracy package as the composition of feedback on how the European Democracy Action Plan works, so some feedback on what we do on disinformation and media, what needs to be done to protect electoral processes. Here comes the relatively new concern stemming from the speedy development of artificial intelligence. Because if we want to keep free and fair elections in the EU, we have to do everything to protect the free competition of real people with real visions, not the machines with manipulative content. We need to protect the free competition also as something which will, which will not enable the dirty methods and dirty money to be winning. By dirty method, I mean, for instance, what we saw with Cambridge Analytica. Yeah, the manipulative technique, abusing the access to our intimate, private data. So we want to do everything to keep the principle of free and fair elections, which I described alive in the EU. I proposed the regulation on political advertising as a lex specialis to the Digital Services Act, because I believe that the algorithms used for selling products to consumers, which is the method the platforms is using, cannot be that easily used for selling politicians to citizens. For me, we speak about two different things. And that's why in our regulation on political ads, we are prohibiting the abuse of sensitive private data. We require full transparency for political ads which are paid. And we want to introduce the system when, again, the voter is well informed, who tries to influence his or her political preferences before the elections and during the campaigns. So this is in the making, this regulation, but I believe we also might get agreement soon. But coming back to defense of democracy, well, what I am speaking now about is the feedback on the European Democracy Action Plan. Then in this package will be two recommendations, one on integrity of electoral processes directed to the member states, one which concerns the civil society sphere. We are recommending the member states several very concrete proposals how to stop shrinking space for the civil society. And then the directive, which is about the interest representation. The directive wants to increase or deliver transparency on the financial flows which go to the EU from outside. We speak about the system when entities operating on our single market have contracts with third countries, not with anyone, but with the states, with the governments, or the entities established by the governments, by the states. And these entities will have the obligation to go public and to once a year update the information about these contracts. That's it. No stigmatizing, no labeling, no foreign agent, but also no blacklisting or whitelisting of the third countries. So it's also ideologically quite neutral. And I think that we need more time to consult with especially civil society organizations. We need some time to try to collect some data about the foreign influence and foreign funding. It's not easy because it's not in the position of the Commission. We will have to look for the data in the member states. I will probably ask the security services. We really have an issue here, but we will do our best to get some data to also be able to explain to the general public how big the problem is. Without the data, it's not very easy. And I will use this summer for enhanced consultations with the stakeholders, because I believe that the tension and the concerns can be only dispelled if we show what we plan in detail and if we play with open cards. And also I am really keen on listening to those who might be affected by that. Last comment. And I just said this will be ideologically neutral. There are many things which must not be ideologically neutral. Many things what we do in our political practice, we who believe in some concrete vision and some concrete solutions, we must not be neutral, and we have to have courage to promote our visions and our ideas. And it sometimes comes to my mind what Elie Wiesel said, that we must take sides. He said something like, neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. And this is also my message for you today, because I think especially now, it's time to take the right side of the history And if somebody says you will just increase the divisions in the society, I don't believe that it is just the excuse. Let's take the right side. And I wish you all the best. I am finishing in the politics, but I will be watching and helping till the end of my days in the Commission. Thank you very much. Stay calm. I do, yes.
Yes, the Commissioner has agreed to stay with us for a few more minutes. Perhaps take one or two questions. And if I may abuse my right as the moderator and host of this event, the European movement was created 75 years ago. In 1948, Churchill gathered a plethora of political leaders, civil society stakeholders, and others to decide how to overcome what Europe was experiencing at the moment, which was devastation post-war, the rise of totalitarianism on the East, and the real threat to democracy and peace going forward with the competition of great powers in our continent. 75 years later, perhaps the challenges are not as existential, but they are severe. We have the return of war on our continent. We see authoritarianism taking hold inside and outside of the EU. And we also see a competition of ideologies, democracy versus totalitarianism, whether it's the Chinese version, the Russian version, or perhaps the Trump version. Mm-hmm. Do you think in this juncture, as 75 years after that moment, those challenges offer us an opportunity to really remind people why Europe is important, why peace is important, why democracy is important? So then when we come to the ballot exactly 12 months from today, we can have a decisive victory for pro-democratic, pro-European forces. Mm.
I had some brilliant idea, I forgot it.
You can just agree.
This is... You would have it too easy with me. By the way, I'm happy somebody is older than me, 75 years. Good thing. Now this is, we appear at the moment of existential battle. But nobody said that democracy is perpetuum mobile. There were some ideas about the end of history and what else, that the good product sells itself. No, we have to fight every day. And we have to address the issues which I mentioned. And also, I think that we should work more with the young generation, because I think there is also something neglected, that they feel abandoned, not being heard enough. I know I am, on your very conceptual question, I am giving you a rather concrete answer. But I think that it has to be taken seriously as everyday battle and struggle. Yes.
Thank you very much indeed. You have been very generous and above all, very forthcoming with your comments. Big welcome from all of us.